Now this is the story of God providing quail and manna for the Israelites. It's coming from Exodus 16. The Israelites came to the desert of Sin between Elam and Sinai, and the Israelite community, they grumbled against Moses and Aaron, and they said, in Egypt we sat around pots of meat and we had more than enough food to eat, but you have brought us into this desert to starve us to death. Now the Lord told Moses that he would rain down bread from heaven, and that the Israelites were to gather as much as they needed for each day, and on the sixth day they were to gather twice as much. And in this way the Lord would test the Israelites. Now Moses told the Israelites that the Lord had heard their grumbling, but that they weren't really grumbling against Moses and Aaron, they were grumbling against the Lord. And the Lord said that in the evening they would know that it was the Lord who delivered them out of Egypt, and in the morning they would see the glory of the Lord. Now, while Aaron was speaking to the whole Israelite community, the Israelites looked up in the cloud and they saw the glory of the Lord in the cloud. And the Lord told Moses that in the morning they would eat meat, and in the evening they would eat bread, and that they would know that he was the Lord. So in the evening, the camp was covered with quail, and in the morning, when the dew was gone, there was a thin, flake-like substance on the ground, and the Israelites said, "What is this?" And Moses said, "This is the bread that the Lord has provided for you to eat." And the Israelites gathered what they needed, and those who gathered much did not have too much, and those who gathered little did not have too little. And Moses told them not to set any of it aside for the next day, but some of them ignored what Moses said, and the next day it was full of maggots and it smelled bad, and Moses was angry with them. Now on the sixth day they were to gather twice as much, because the seventh day was a day of rest, a Sabbath, a holy Sabbath to the Lord, and there wouldn't be any of it on the Sabbath to gather. So they took those that gathered twice as much. What they gathered on the next day, it didn't have maggots in it, and it didn't smell bad. But some of them went out on the seventh day to gather some, but there wasn't any to gather. And the Lord said, "How long will you refuse to obey my commands?" Now the Israelites called the bread that God had provided or rained down from heaven, they called it manna. It was white like coriander seed. It was sweet like wafers and honey. And the Lord told Moses to set some of it aside for the generations to come. So Aaron put some in a jar, and they set it before the testimony of the Lord for the generations to come, so that the Israelites could see the bread that the Lord provided them in the desert when he delivered them out of Egypt. Now the Lord provided the manna for 40 days or 40 years while they were in the desert, until they came to the border of Canaan. And this is the story from Exodus 16.